One of the social movements that I have stumbled upon is the male purity movement. And that's a really, really interesting thing. There was a slogan among the first wave feminists, which was votes for women and chastity for men. Purity for men, I'm sorry. There was a very odd thing that happened, is women in the bourgeois culture in American England, women had been forced into these roles in the home. They had been excluded from the public. But they were educated. It was the beginning of an educated class. And what we got is the first reverse discourse that I know of. It's the earliest one that I've been able to trace, where women took on this role of the home and being the sexless, virtuous half of the binary. That, you know, that all this shit that had been projected upon them by men, they took it over and made it a positive thing. So they said that their purity and their morality needed to be spread. You know, so they kind of made this alliance with Christianity in a sense. And you know, maybe that's just the way social movements work. You do pacts with the devil in order to get forward, and then sometimes you look back and it's like, oh, it didn't really happen the way I wanted it to happen. And there's been a lot of consequences. So the consequences of this, you know, this first wave are really interesting, is because what you had is you had an attack on sex. You had an attack on sensuality. So it was kind of this idea that male lust was an animal thing, that is very degenerate. You know, so they had this image of degeneration. There was a new kind of biological thinking, and they thought that society was degenerating. It was being eaten out by disease. They looked at the cholera outbreaks in England I think it was in the 1840s. They didn't know what caused it, but it was kind of in the poor districts of town. And so what they looked and they said, oh, it's their immorality, it's their sinfulness, it's their sexuality. That's what's causing this disease. We have to sanitize. We have to go in and sanitize and make them moral and make them chaste. They actually thought that masturbation and the prostitution and, you know, the people, they weren't that immodest. They saw a lot of nakedness, naked bodies. They were kind of sex positive, what we would view as sex positive now. So they went in and they wanted to stamp all that out. And they were very, very successful. That's what we call Victorianism, is, you know, it was these social movements. You know, and one of the things that, you know, they did was circumcision, you know, in order to stop the lusts. The lusts of men had to be under control, these animal lusts. You know, they thought that masturbation, you were draining your life essence. That was their narrative, that you could only come a certain amount of times in your life, and that you were draining essence each time. So they thought that masturbation was causing, you know, everything they saw around them, and the causes of industrialization, you know, all of this poverty, all of this ill health in the cities. They looked and there was sin that was causing this. It's sex. So they wanted chastity within marriage. You know, so women were, the women in the kind of the woman movement of the 1880s, 1890s, they were identifying as sexless. You know, they were very much anti-sexuality. So they wanted to impose that also upon their husbands. That was a big part of this movement. And again, it's like resentment. It's like the revenge. Men forced them into their little box. Their revenge was forcing men into a little box. And getting almost universal clitoridectomy for men, circumcision. You know, we had our clits mutilated. That's a very interesting biopolitical product of this time. Because they were just having such a hard time stamping out sexuality and stamping out sex. It was one of those, the movement fueled itself because it could never be successful. It just fueled itself. Kellogg's cornflakes, yeah, he was a big man in the purity movement. So he thought that eating iced cakes were causing these passions, these bestial passions. So he wanted, all of his food was, I think someone called it an aphrodisiac. It's opposite of an aphrodisiac. So it was all designed to calm lust. So that's when salt, kind of spice and salt, got taken out of the Victorian diet. We learned to distrust pleasure and sensuality. So, isn't this all very interesting? I'll keep it short there, but I'll be back. I'll try to put a couple of links to some good books in the bar. So, yeah, I'll be back with more such tidbits. Bye-bye, sweet.